This short summary is going to be going over the June 2010 Northern Plains tornado outbreak. With a total of 93 tornadoes that spawned from June 16th to the 18th, in all, these 93 tornadoes would cause $117.7 million in damage, injure 43, and cause 5 deaths. On this map of tornadoes, by the way, I believe it is 77 that are listed. Image taken from Wikipedia, so Wikipedia would have the specific number, but I do believe it is 77. On the first day, we had high slim, everything needed, so high shear, lift, and stability and moisture. However, we had warm air aloft. This is a capping inversion or a cap or just warm air aloft. Generally in the troposphere, where all weather happens, the higher you go in altitude, the lower the temperature gets. Well, in this case, there's a layer of air that this was the opposite, where that it was warming with height. This inhibits storm development, let alone tornadogenesis. The next day, however, was much more favorable. We had high surface and dew temperatures, surface temperatures around the 80s and dew temperatures just edging into the 70s Fahrenheit, with forecasted Cape convective available potential energy of 3,000 joules per kilogram. The next day, Cape was forecasted to be 1,000 joules per kilogram higher, but instead of more tornadoes, we got two separate derechos, that being pictured here in the bottom left, something that for sure does not happen all too often. We start with our first notable, the Thompson area, North Dakota EF4. This tornado had a pretty impressive path of 27 kilometers, thankfully only causing one injury. The only EF4 damage that I could find, at least listed on Wikipedia, was that a house was completely wiped away. Its basement, being underground of course, remained. Good for the basement. Many trees were snapped and debarked as well. And one tree specifically was found to have a metal chair lodged in it. I can only assume that it was the leg of the chair and hopefully not the back, because that getting a back of a chair into a tree is going to take a lot more force. But either way, an EF4 could likely do that. Our next notable is also an EF4, the Parker's Prairie to New York Mills, Minnesota EF4. With a much more impressive track of 64 kilometers, this tornado was also 2.1 kilometers wide at its widest. Thankfully, this would cause some relatively low casualties, but still 5 injuries and 1 person did die. This tornado was also reported to be highly multivortex, and cars were tossed and trees were debarked. Our next notable is the Wadena area, Minnesota EF4, yet another EF4, go figure. This tornado tracked 16 kilometers, and at its widest was 1.8 kilometers wide. This tornado caused $32 million in damage, injuring 20 people, and thankfully causing no deaths. This tornado developed very rapidly. It was noted to be a pretty large wedge, and probably at, I could assume, EF3 intensity within half an hour of it first touching the ground, or definitely less than that. 2 homes were slabbed, and Wadena High School suffered major damage. School buses were thrown as well. Hopefully none into the school. Our fourth notable, and our last one, is the west of Alberts Lee, Minnesota EF4. With a track 32 kilometers wide, this tornado would injure 14 people along its path. Also purported as a large wedge, as seems to be the norm, with the early 2000s and 2010s and their reporting. I get no pictures of it, so I can't truly confirm this. What we do at least know for sure is that many farmsteads, that including outbuildings, the homes, and barns themselves were dismantled, and a wind energy facility was damaged. I can assume that at the wind energy facility is definitely where they found those EF4 damage indicators. This outbreak is one for the Minnesotan weather books. This is the largest Minnesotan, or I should say, largest Minnesota tornado outbreak in recorded history. Not only that, in the larger scheme of all tornado outbreaks, this is one of the most prolific summer outbreaks, specifically meteorological summer. This outbreak also holds the second largest tornado day in, again, meteorological summer. I believe it is only behind the 2003 outbreak, which, if I'm not mistaken, produced the Spencer, South Dakota EF4. Switching gears to the derechos, one thing of note is that the derechos in total left over 600,000 people without power. And that is all that I have for this short summary. I appreciate you watching all the way until the very end, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.